What if every step you took could send you centuries forward or backward in time? On planet Kronos, where time flows like liquid chaos, archaeologist astronaut Oliver Kane discovers more than ancient ruins. He meets Alara, a mysterious time walker whose touch can bend reality itself. But their growing connection will uncover a devastating truth. Humanity's war with aliens began because of her ancestors' technology. As they fight to change the past, they must face consequences rippling through infinite timelines. Will their love survive time's cruel paradoxes? Subscribe now to witness this mind-bending journey through shattered time. The chronometer on Oliver's wrist spun wildly as he stepped through the iridescent mist surrounding Kronos' ancient temple. His breath caught at the sight before him, structures that seemed to shift between pristine marble columns and crumbling ruins in the same moment. Time here wasn't just broken, it was alive, pulsing like a living organism. His boots crunched against crystalline sand that shimmered with colors no human eye should perceive. This was his third expedition to Kronos, but nothing had prepared him for what waited beyond the massive obsidian doorway ahead. The air vibrated with an otherworldly hum, making his teeth ache. Somewhere deep within these ruins lay answers about the mysterious civilization that had mastered time itself, answers that could change everything humanity understood about the universe. Oliver adjusted the settings on his scanner, trying to make sense of the readings. Numbers flickered erratically, showing dates that span millennia in both directions. He felt like a speck adrift in an ocean of fractured moments, each wave threatening to pull him under into some unknown era. Despite the disorienting sensation, there was beauty here, a haunting, ethereal quality to the ruins that defied logic. Pillars stretched upward, their surfaces etched with symbols that shifted and morphed as though they were alive. Some glowed faintly, while others appeared dull and lifeless, only to suddenly flare with light moments later. It was as if the very fabric of existence rebelled against order, refusing to conform to any linear timeline. As he moved deeper into the site, Oliver couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Shadows danced along the edges of his vision, not quite solid enough to be real but too persistent to dismiss as mere tricks of the light. Every step echoed unnaturally loud, reverberating through the strange silence that enveloped the area. He paused, scanning the horizon for signs of movement. That's when he first noticed them, the figures. Or rather, fragments of figures, appearing and disappearing in flashes, so quick they might have been imagined. Yet something told him they weren't illusions. These glimpses hinted at intelligence, perhaps even sentience. And then, without warning, one of those fragmented forms coalesced directly in front of him. The first time Oliver saw Alara, she emerged from a temporal rift like a ghost made flesh. Her crimson skin glowed softly in the erratic light, adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to dance across her form. She moved with impossible grace, stepping through scattered moments like a dancer choreographing with infinity itself. When their eyes met, Oliver felt time freeze around them. Not literally, though that would happen often enough later. Her voice carried the weight of countless epochs when she spoke, explaining how she could navigate the fractured time streams of Kronos. "You shouldn't be here," she warned, yet didn't move to send him away. In her presence, Oliver's carefully cultivated scientific detachment crumbled faster than any ancient ruin he'd ever studied. Alara's appearance was mesmerizing, almost otherworldly. Her hair cascaded down her back in waves of deep burgundy, interwoven with strands of silver that sparkled faintly, as if infused with stardust. Her eyes, almond-shaped and luminous, held a depth that suggested she'd witnessed far more than any human could comprehend. Around her neck hung a pendant shaped like a spiral galaxy, its surface swirling with hues of violet and gold. When she gestured toward the ruins, tiny motes of light trailed after her fingers, lingering briefly before dissolving into the air. Oliver found himself struggling to maintain composure. Here was someone who embodied the very essence of this chaotic world, someone who seemed to exist outside the constraints of conventional physics. "Who are you?" he asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Alara tilted her head slightly, studying him with an expression that mixed curiosity and caution. "I am Alara," she replied simply, as though her name alone explained everything. "And I am bound to this place, to its time." Before Oliver could respond, she extended a hand, palm up, inviting him to follow her. Against all reason, he accepted. Their initial encounters played out like scenes from different movies spliced together. One moment they stood in a grand hall filled with golden light, discussing the nature of linear existence. The next, they found themselves centuries earlier, watching the very same hall being constructed by beings who defied humanoid classification. Alara demonstrated her abilities by pulling them through these temporal layers, showing Oliver glimpses of Kronos' history that made his head spin. Each transition left him disoriented, while she remained perfectly composed, explaining how time-weaving ran in her bloodline. Their conversations ranged from philosophical debates about fate to intimate exchanges that felt both new and ancient simultaneously. With each meeting, Oliver found himself falling deeper into something he couldn't define. Was it love, or simply the gravitational pull of another timeline? One particularly jarring experience occurred when Alara guided him through a dense cluster of temporal anomalies. They stepped into what appeared to be a bustling marketplace, complete with vendors hawking exotic goods and citizens engaged in animated conversation. But just as quickly, the scene dissolved, replaced by a desolate wasteland littered with the skeletal remains of buildings. Oliver staggered, clutching his head as conflicting sensory inputs overwhelmed him. "Focus," Alara urged, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Let go of your need to understand. Trust me." Slowly, he nodded, allowing her calm demeanor to anchor him. Over time, Oliver began to adapt, or at least cope better, with the disorienting shifts. He learned to recognize subtle cues in Alara's movements, the way her body tensed before initiating a jump. Gradually, he developed a rudimentary sense of the temporal currents himself, though nothing compared to her mastery. Their shared experiences forged a bond deeper than words could express. Whether exploring forgotten archives or witnessing pivotal moments in Kronos' past, they grew inseparable, their connection transcending the boundaries of species and time alike. The ruins revealed their secrets grudgingly, like reluctant storytellers bound by temporal shackles. Towering monoliths displayed shifting inscriptions that told conflicting stories depending on when, or rather, where in time, you viewed them. Alara guided Oliver through these narrative labyrinths, her fingers tracing symbols that pulsed under her touch. Together they pieced together fragments of Kronos' past, how its inhabitants had developed time manipulation technology not through scientific advancement, but through biological evolution. The most disturbing discoveries came when they uncovered evidence of early human contact, trade records mentioning Earth's coordinates, technical schematics that bore uncanny resemblance to human time experiment blueprints. Each revelation added pieces to a puzzle whose final image grew increasingly ominous. In one particularly revealing session, they entered a chamber dominated by a massive holographic display. Alara activated it with a gesture, and images sprang to life, depicting humans arriving on Kronos long before official records acknowledged such contact. These visitors wore suits bearing insignias of corporations known for their ruthless pursuit of profit. They bargained aggressively with Kronosian leaders, demanding access to advanced technologies despite warnings of catastrophic consequences. Oliver clenched his fists, anger rising as he realized how greed had driven humanity to exploit this peaceful civilization. "What happened next?" he asked quietly, dreading the answer. Alara hesitated before responding, her expression darkening. "They stole what we refused to give freely. And in doing so, they unleashed chaos upon us, and eventually upon yourselves." Her words hung heavy in the air, underscoring the tragic irony of the situation. Humanity's desire for power had sown seeds of destruction, leading ultimately to the very conflict they sought to prevent. As weeks stretched into months, though time measurement proved notoriously unreliable on Kronos, Oliver and Alara's relationship evolved in ways neither could have anticipated. She taught him to sense the flow of temporal currents, to recognize safe passages through time's turbulence. In return, he shared human stories of constancy and linearity, concepts so foreign to her people, yet strangely appealing. Their physical connection developed tentatively at first, each touch potentially triggering a temporal jump. But soon they learned to anchor each other, finding stability in their bond even as the world around them fractured and reformed. These intimate moments became their sanctuary amidst the chaos, brief islands of normalcy in an ocean of temporal madness. One evening, or what passed for evening in this timeless realm, they found themselves seated beside a tranquil pool reflecting twin moons. Alara leaned against Oliver, her warmth grounding him despite the surreal surroundings. "Do you ever wonder," she mused, "if our meeting was inevitable? If the threads of time conspired to bring us together?" He chuckled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just dumb luck." Her laughter rang out, clear and melodic, echoing off the nearby cliffs. But their happiness was tempered by awareness of the challenges ahead. Every stolen moment of peace felt precious, knowing full well that external forces might tear them apart at any instant. Still, they clung to hope, drawing strength from each other's presence. For Oliver, Alara represented not only a guide through this bewildering landscape, but also a beacon of possibility, a reminder that even amid chaos, connections could flourish. The war's origins unfolded before them like a tragic opera performed across multiple timelines. Through Alara's guidance, they witnessed humanity's first encounter with Kronos' technology, not through peaceful exchange, but via theft. A human research vessel had arrived during one of Kronos' vulnerable time phases, stealing core components of their time manipulation systems. The resulting temporal backlash had devastated parts of Alara's civilization, creating pockets of frozen time where entire populations remained trapped in endless moments. Worse still, humans had misinterpreted these events as hostile action, responding with military force. The irony crushed them both, a conflict born from misunderstanding and greed, fueled by technology that had once been meant to unite, not divide. Together, they pieced together fragments of diplomatic attempts gone awry. Messages sent from Kronos seeking reconciliation were intercepted and distorted, painting Alara's people as aggressors. Meanwhile, corporate interests back on Earth capitalized on fear, pushing narratives that justified retaliation. Oliver listened grimly as Alara recounted tales of peaceful protests met with violence, of desperate pleas ignored or deliberately misconstrued. "It doesn't have to end this way," he murmured, gripping her hand tightly. "We can change it. Rewrite the story." Alara gazed at him, her eyes reflecting centuries of sorrow and resilience. "Perhaps," she said softly, "but rewriting history comes at a cost. Are you prepared to pay it?" Paradoxes became their constant companions, lurking in every shadow of Kronos' ruined landscape. They watched themselves from afar, engaged in conversations they hadn't yet had. Once, they encountered an older version of Oliver warning them away from certain areas, his face lined with knowledge of tragedies yet to come. Another time, they found Alara's childhood self playing among the ruins, completely unaware of their presence. These encounters forced them to question every action, every word spoken. Was their current path predetermined, or could they forge a new future? The weight of infinite possibilities pressed down on them, making even simple decisions feel monumental. Yet through it all, their bond remained their compass, guiding them through the maze of potential outcomes. Navigating these paradoxes required careful planning and split-second reflexes. Alara developed techniques to minimize disruptions, teaching Oliver how to read the temporal ripples caused by their actions. They established protocols for handling accidental meetings with alternate versions of themselves, ensuring consistency without compromising free will. Despite these precautions, close calls abounded. During one particularly harrowing incident, they narrowly avoided altering a key event that would have unraveled decades of progress. Through trial and error, they refined their approach, learning to tread lightly in the delicate web of causality. Each success bolstered their confidence, reinforcing their belief that change, even monumental change, was possible. Yet doubt lingered, whispering insidious doubts about whether their efforts truly mattered in the grand scheme of things. Kronos' technology revealed its true nature gradually, like layers of an onion peeling back to expose a core both wondrous and terrible. At the heart of the ruins lay the temporal nexus, a crystalline structure that pulsed with the lifeblood of time itself. Alara explained how her ancestors had used it to maintain balance between different time streams, ensuring that changes in one era didn't destabilize others. But the stolen components had disrupted this delicate equilibrium, creating ripples that spread across galaxies. As they studied the Nexus, Oliver realized why humans had coveted this power so desperately and why they had utterly failed to comprehend its true purpose. The realization filled him with equal parts awe and dread. The Nexus operated on principles entirely alien to human understanding. Rather than manipulating time directly, it harmonized existing flows, smoothing out discrepancies, much like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Attempts to harness its power for selfish ends inevitably led to disaster, as evidenced by the scars left behind by previous misuse. Alara demonstrated its functions cautiously, aware of the risks involved. Watching her interact with the Nexus, Oliver marveled at the elegance of its design. It wasn't a tool to dominate time, but a means to coexist with it, respecting its complexity rather than trying to control it. Yet the allure of such power remained undeniable. Even as they worked to safeguard the Nexus, Oliver couldn't help wondering how many others might seek to exploit it. Protecting this marvel required vigilance and sacrifice. Their attempts to warn humanity played out like scenes from a tragedy written by cosmic forces. Messages sent forward disappeared into temporal voids. Attempts to physically travel to human space resulted in arrival decades too early or too late. Once, they managed to reach a human outpost only to find it already destroyed by the very war they sought to prevent. Each failure etched deeper lines of determination on Oliver's face, while Alara's luminous skin dimmed slightly with each disappointment. Yet their resolve never wavered. They pored over ancient texts, searching for forgotten protocols that might help bridge the gap between their peoples. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on their shoulders, but their shared burden drew them closer together. Communication proved especially challenging. Traditional methods failed spectacularly in the face of temporal distortions, leaving them scrambling for alternatives. Eventually, they devised a system using synchronized pulses of energy calibrated to resonate across multiple timelines. This breakthrough allowed them to establish tenuous links with sympathetic factions within human society, planting seeds of doubt about the necessity of continued conflict. Despite setbacks, small victories kept them motivated. Reports trickled in of isolated ceasefires, tentative negotiations sparked by their interventions. Progress was agonizingly slow, but undeniable. Each success reinforced their belief that change was possible, however incremental. A breakthrough came unexpectedly while exploring a section of ruins that existed simultaneously in multiple time states. Here, past and future versions of themselves worked together, sharing knowledge across temporal boundaries. They discovered a method to create stable time anchors, points where reality remained constant despite surrounding chaos. Using this technique, they began establishing a network of communication nodes throughout human and Chronosian territories. The process proved agonizingly slow, requiring precise coordination across different eras. But gradually, they built bridges where none had existed before, creating channels for dialogue that transcended normal time constraints. Each successful connection felt like a small victory against overwhelming odds. Collaboration extended beyond mere communication. By anchoring specific locations in time, they facilitated joint missions aimed at repairing damage caused by the war. Teams composed of humans and Chronosians worked side by side, learning from each other's strengths. These partnerships fostered mutual respect, breaking down barriers erected by centuries of mistrust. Oliver and Alara served as mediators, navigating the complexities of cross-cultural interaction with patience and empathy. Their leadership inspired others to follow suit, expanding the scope of cooperation exponentially. What started as isolated efforts blossomed into a widespread movement dedicated to healing old wounds and forging new alliances. Resistance came from both sides, manifesting in forms both expected and surprising. Human military forces, viewing their efforts as interference, dispatched units to capture or eliminate them. Meanwhile, factions within Alera's own people questioned her alliance with a representative of their historical enemy. Betrayals cut deepest when they came from unexpected quarters, trusted allies disappearing into alternate timelines, messages intercepted and twisted to sow discord. Through it all, Oliver and Alera clung to their mission, their relationship becoming both shield and sword against those who would see their efforts fail. Their love, once a private sanctuary, transformed into a public statement of unity that challenged centuries of mistrust and hatred. Confrontations tested their resolve repeatedly. Ambushes in unstable time zones forced them to rely on quick thinking and teamwork. Sabotage attempts targeted their communication nodes, necessitating constant maintenance and reinforcement. Yet adversity only strengthened their determination. They adapted strategies, anticipating threats before they materialized. Supporters rallied around them, drawn by their unwavering commitment to peace. Volunteers joined their cause, contributing skills and resources vital to sustaining momentum. Together, they formed a resilient coalition capable of weathering even the fiercest opposition. The cost of their crusade mounted steadily, measured not just in temporal paradoxes, but in personal sacrifices. Oliver watched as years passed differently for him and Alera, their ages slipping out of sync due to repeated time jumps. Her once vibrant patterns began fading, evidence of the strain their activities placed on her natural abilities. They lost count of the times they'd had to say goodbye, knowing they might never meet again in the same temporal stream. Yet each separation strengthened their resolve, their partings becoming bittersweet promises rather than final goodbyes. The knowledge that their actions might prevent future generations from experiencing similar pain kept them moving forward, even when every fiber of their being screamed to stop. Moments of vulnerability punctuated their journey. Late-night conversations turned introspective, exploring fears and doubts neither dared voice openly. Tears shed privately became fuel for renewed effort, reminders of what was at stake. Physical tolls accumulated silently, aches and fatigue masked by determination, but emotional scars ran deepest. Still, they persevered, buoyed by fleeting triumphs and the unwavering belief that their sacrifices mattered. Each hardship endured brought them closer to their goal, reinforcing their conviction that love and understanding could overcome even the greatest obstacles. Hope materialized in the form of the Temporal Accord, a treaty negotiated across dozens of simultaneous meetings in various time periods. Representatives from both species gathered at carefully established anchor points, their discussions facilitated by Oliver and Alera's unprecedented partnership. The agreement called for shared stewardship of time manipulation technology, strict regulations on its use, and establishment of joint research facilities. Most revolutionary was the provision for temporal ambassadors, individuals trained to navigate both cultures and timelines, preventing future misunderstandings. As signatures were affixed across multiple eras simultaneously, Oliver and Alera exchanged a look that contained centuries of struggle and triumph compressed into a single moment. Celebrations erupted spontaneously, transcending temporal boundaries. Cheers echoed through synchronized gatherings, uniting participants separated by vast distances and disparate timelines. Symbolic gestures underscored the significance of the occasion, hands clasped in solidarity, speeches delivered with heartfelt sincerity. Optimism surged, tangible and infectious, igniting dreams of a brighter future. For Oliver and Alera, the accord represented vindication of their tireless efforts. Doubters silenced, skeptics converted, enemies reconciled, all thanks to their steadfast dedication. Pride mingled with relief, exhaustion giving way to exhilaration. Victory brought its own challenges, as peace often does. Rebuilding trust required more than official agreements. It demanded fundamental changes in how both species perceive time and progress. Human scientists struggled to adapt their linear thinking to the fluid temporality of Kronos, while Alera's people worked to overcome their instinctive mistrust of outsiders. Oliver and Alera became living symbols of this new understanding, their relationship evolving into something beyond romantic partnership. They established the Chrono Institute, dedicated to studying and preserving temporal harmony while fostering cultural exchange. Their work attracted followers from both species, creating a community that transcended traditional boundaries of time and space. Education played a crucial role in bridging gaps. Workshops introduced humans to Chronosian perspectives, emphasizing interconnectedness over dominance. Reciprocal programs immersed Chronosians in human culture, highlighting commonalities beneath superficial differences. Mutual appreciation grew organically, nurtured by shared experiences and collaborative projects. Legacy building consumed their energies, shaping institutions designed to endure beyond individual lifetimes. Oliver envisioned libraries chronicling lessons learned, archives preserving wisdom gleaned from hard-won victories. Alera dreamed of sanctuaries where future generations could explore time safely, guided by principles of respect and cooperation. Years later, though the concept of years had become increasingly relative, Oliver stood beside Alera at the Institute's dedication ceremony. Around them, humans and Chronosians worked together seamlessly, their movements synchronized across multiple time streams. The once ruined temple now served as the Institute's central hub, its ancient stones imbued with new purpose. As they watched younger generations learning to navigate temporal currents together, Oliver realized their journey had created something far greater than peace. It had forged a new paradigm of existence where different perceptions of time enriched rather than divided. Their story, preserved across countless timelines, served as a reminder that love and understanding could bridge even the widest chasms of difference. Remember to subscribe for more mind-bending tales of love and adventure across the stars.